Hello, it's Cindy Cotton from the Osterville Village Library, and we're back with our interviews. And this one, we're starting off with a great, well-rounded, famous author named Jule Selbo. She has just written this book, 10 Days, and it is a mystery. And Jules, you have such an amazing history and career. Can you just tell us a little bit about your past adventures and all your different writing opportunities that you've had?
Sure. I started, I grew up in Fargo, North Dakota, and was always writing little books and little plays, and we would put them on the garage. And I had a teacher who had us making films in junior high, writing them, directing them, acting in them, editing them. And at the same time, I was very active in the theater department. So I was really into performance, entertainment kind of writing at that time. And I was just always that nerd who just kept writing. And then I went to school in Texas, and I was in the theater department and was doing acting, but I was also writing. And that just kind of continued along the way. So when I wrote a play that was done off Broadway when I got out of graduate school and in North Carolina. And that play got some attention in town and got me a job writing for a daytime soap opera. And I was so excited because all of a sudden I was getting paid to be a writer. And that was exciting. So I quit all the other little jobs that I had, and I was getting paid to do this. And at the same time, I got an agent who said, if, writing plays is great, but we got to get you more television and film because it's the only way I can make money. And so he said, come up with some ideas for this show called Tales from the Dark Side. George Romero, who did Night of the Living Dead, a big horror name in film, wonderful man. He was doing a new TV series called Tales from the Dark Side. So I came up with some ideas for it. They bought a couple of ideas. They said, oh, we don't want you to write them because you're a soap opera writer. And I was like, I never thought of myself as a soap opera writer because I'd been writing plays and all that stuff. They said, well, you can do the first draft, but we'll probably rewrite you. I said, fine. So I did the first drafts. They liked them. I did the second and the third drafts and the production drafts. And then from there, another one of my plays got some attention in Hollywood. And so I was hired to write a movie for Paramount. And I was hired to be a staff writer on a sitcom. And so I moved from New York to Los Angeles. And it was interesting because writing the feature was just so great for me because it's it's a solo task. It was an adaptation of a wonderful book by Rachel Ingalls. And it was a book that was an interior monologue. And so I had to create all these characters and flesh it out and all that kind of stuff. And then on the flip side, I was doing a sitcom where that's really written around a table, basically. There were 6 or 7 other writers and jokes were tossed back and forth. And I liked being a playwright. I liked writing my own stuff. I liked writing features. And I also liked telling the story with the camera. So I told my agent, I said, when the sitcom is over, please get me, let's look for a job in 1-hour television. Because in 1-hour television, you're the solo writer again in most instances. So you sell your story, you write your story, they shoot it. So I went on to 1-hour television. And from there, I went on and worked with George Lucas on Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. And then it's probably as far away as you could get from that. I worked on Melrose Place and Space Above and Beyond. I did the pilot for the Hercules series. And at the same time, I was writing features. But all the way back, when I think about being a kid in Fargo, the first thing I was doing was writing these little books. So I spent 20 years in Hollywood writing for animation, live action, 1-hour, half-hour, every kind of genre. And it was time to kind of stop the collaboration, which is always fun and exciting. But I didn't really want to go and take notes from the director and take notes from the actors and take notes from the executives. At least I wanted to get as close as I could to my vision. So my husband and I moved to Maine, Portland, Maine, and I started writing books. The first one, go back a little bit, I was asked to teach in Florence, Italy for 3 years, on and off, mostly on for 3 years. So when I was there and out of Hollywood, I wrote this book, Find Me in Florence, because I really do love to bring this time and place to life. And Florence obviously is amazingly beautiful, amazing historic spot. And I love history. So I was there when the Mud Angels, which was in 1966, the river Arno flooded and nearly destroyed Florence and all the art and a lot of the cathedrals and the Uffizi and the Biblioteca, the library, everything. And people from all over the world, hearing about this terrible disaster, flew in as close as they could get to Florence and hitchhiked into town or whatever. And they were given a pair of rubber boots, knee-high rubber boots, and said, start digging. So they would go into the muck and the mud and come up with these treasures, these Renaissance statues and treasures and books. So it was the 50th anniversary of that. So that's covered in this book. It's also a story of a woman whose marriage is falling apart. So there's that going on and her looking into her mother's past and stuff. So then moving to Portland, I love mysteries. It's kind of my go-to reading. And I thought, okay, now's the time. So I started 10 Days, which takes place in Portland, Maine. And from what people have told me and the reviews, that Portland itself has become a character too. And I was really happy to hear that and to read that, because I worked very hard I fell in love with this city immediately. And I really wanted to bring it to life. So this has got crime, mystery, mayhem, a great character. Dee Rommel is a policewoman, but she's been injured on the job. And so she's on medical leave, and she's working for her godfather, who's a private investigator, just doing his books and trying to decide what to do with her life, because she's lost part of her left leg. So she doesn't quite know what she wants to do in the future, if she wants to go back in the police force or not. And Gordy, her godfather, has to leave town to do something. And he tells her to take over the beginnings of this case while he's gone. So she gets pulled into it. And she's just a fun character to write, because she's got a chip on her shoulder. She's real smart. She has a lot of flaws. And I love writing characters who have a lot of flaws, who have a journey to go through, and they're always realizing something about themselves, and there's lots of room for change. But so she's got the job that Gordy asked her to look into, which is for a big tech entrepreneur whose life is spiraling out of control when his daughter disappears. And then at the same time, one of her best friends gets attacked, a female friend of hers, and she knows who did it, but he's got an alibi. And so her job is to break that alibi. So that's what I've been doing. Along the way, I also have done some other historical fiction novels. Here's one of them. Dreams of Discovery, about John Cabot, who's really Giovanni Gabbato from Genoa. And he grew up in the same place that Christopher Columbus grew up. And he's the one who actually planted the English flag in Nova Scotia and in Maine and down the coast in Massachusetts. And some people think it all the way to Florida, but there's evidence that he went at least as far down as Georgia. So he really is more, I think, after I did all this research, responsible for why we're all speaking English and we have that British background. And whereas Christopher Columbus was kind of a braggart, and if there were social media back then, Christopher Columbus would have been like, right there. Cabato he wanted to be an explorer, and he finally got the patronage of the English king, and changed his name to John Cabot before he went to speak to the king, because he didn't think the king would give him Giovanni Cabato his patronage.
Wow, you've had quite the well-rounded career. I mean, you've written in so many different genres, and that's very interesting. How do you find Maine coming from LA? How did you pick Maine? I'm just curious. Because Stephen King and you were going to write mysteries, or?
Well, I knew I wanted to end up being, writing novels, but LA is great, and it's great if you want to be in the film business. Weather-wise, like I said, I'm from North Dakota. I miss snow. I miss the fall. I miss the seasons. And my husband is a sailor, and he loves to sail in this area. So we scoped out a lot of New England, and kind of decided on Portland because it's got everything. It's got theaters. I had a play done at the Good Theater, which is 4 or 5 blocks from where we live. It was a psychological thriller called Boxes, and there's lovely theaters here. Amazing writers live here, same as on Cape Cod. There's tons of great writers. Maybe the East Coast and the weather and getting to spend a lot of time by yourself when the weather isn't great outside helps. But so there's just a great writing community here, and there's sailing, so it's perfect.
That sounds great. It's funny, I watch a lot of Hallmark, and they do a whole series on mysteries, and one of them, they have wherever this girl is, somebody ends up dying, but they talk a lot about how mysteries are structured. And one of the people in the characters is a professor at the college and stuff, and it's very interesting. Now, when you write a mystery, do you develop your characters first? Do you have an idea? Do you base it on something, or is it just something that comes to you?
Well, I always think that any good book or any good movie, any good TV show, you have to get involved in the character. So I think for me, the character always comes first. And then like Find Me in Florence, it's a love story, history. Giovanni Cabato is history. And so there were like marks in the sand that I needed to hit because they're based on true life. In 10 days, I knew the character. I kind of start writing, the character comes to life. And then I have to complicate her world emotionally and psychologically and philosophically and physically. And then at the same time, maybe because I did spend so much time as a screenwriter, and there's this thing called the inciting incident in screenwriting, where in the first 3 to 5 pages, you want something bang to happen so that the audience is like totally drawn into the problem of the story. So I had my character and set up her world, and then bam, she goes into the office and this guy shows up and needs her to find his daughter. And there's a wonderful island off Portland called Shebig Island. There's Big Shebig and Little Shebig, and it's beautiful and idyllic. And he said, my daughter's getting married. I didn't even know she had a boyfriend, and now she's not talking to me, and I don't know where she is, and I can't find her. And Dee, my character, says, well, maybe maybe she doesn't want you. Maybe she just wants you to leave her alone. And he said, no, because she sent me a note. I'm getting married June 22nd, Shebig. And he said, when I divorced, she and her mother were, he was divorced from her mother and spent time alone with his daughter on Shebig Island in the summer. And they loved their time together. And they made this kind of pact that if ever she needed him, just to send him that one word, Shabig.
Hmm.
So he knows something's up, but he can't figure out where she is. So
Hmm.
the mystery starts going.
Do you see this as being a part of a series or the start of?
Oh
a
yeah.
series?
So I'm working on 9 days. Here's my notebook.
Wow.
So this is 10 days. It'll go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I hope. I hope I can get that far and still be alive to tell the tale.
Wow, I'm sure you will. That's incredible. On another note, if you ever wanted to do a sitcom again, the Osterville Library would make a great format for a sitcom. I tell you, some days here, you can't make up the stuff that happens in here. I'm
Well,
really
it's
surprised
it's
nobody's.
such a great library. Thank you for your tour of it, like a month ago. It's so impressive.
Yeah.
And I bet if I sat down with you, you would give me like 12,000 plots.
Oh, I tell you, and the characters are constantly changing, and it's some days it's amazing, but it's a lot of fun. So, over your career, what has been the most fun for you? You seem like you're having a really good time doing this now, but I'm sure every aspect's been very rewarding in its time. But what is your favorite part, or has it just all been great experiences?
Well, I think it's all been great, at the time. I love theater. I still love going to theater, writing plays. And it's such a collaborative thing, and it's kind of like being on a sports team. You're in it together, and you're putting on a play, and you got the big opening night, and it's all fun. And then movies and TV shows are kind of like that. As the writer of a feature, you're usually not that involved in the production unless the director for some reason wants you around or is actually a generous person. The Directors Guild of America for features gives most of the power to the director. But in television, the writer is more the king. The executive producers are, for the most part, writers and showrunners. So when I worked on television shows, I was in on the casting and the costuming and the, how the production looked and everything. And then, I was in the editing room, and everybody along the way have their own specialty. But as a writer, executive producer on television, you get more input and you can control it a little bit more. I did some animated movies where I would write the script, and then the script would be sent overseas, usually for animation. So I had nothing to do with it. And a lot of times animation artists will get an idea and they'll start drawing it. And sometimes the script will change more than you think it's going to change because they have so much input. So it kind of made sense, I think, to me that I ended up now doing novels more, because it is more of this is me, take it or leave it, but this is me and this is my story. And the editor will give you some advice, but I have a great publisher, Panda Moon, and they basically are pretty hands off. The editor will do typos and give some suggestions. Like in Find Me in Florence, the great editor that I have, Forrest, the only thing she did is find some cuts. I think we took out like 3,000 words because she said, oh, this might be a little repetitive, or what if you jump from here to there? But the story was not changed. And in 10 days, I was hoping that she would find more cuts. I mean, it's not a long book, but I thought, oh, good, she'll find some cuts. And she said, no, I think you need everything in here. So that was nice. But at the same time, I'm like, okay. So it's interesting that as a writer, you come back and you just kind of want to, do your own thing.
So this could almost go full circle if this got picked up and somebody wanted to make a movie out of it.
Yeah.
Out of the whole series, then you could be right back in the movie business.
Yeah, I think what I would do is just go, thank you very much. I'll show up on the set. You do it. I just love my life here in Portland. I love the kind of the rhythm I've gotten into, and I'm still teaching. I'm still a professor. This is one of the books, the textbooks that I've written, film genre for the screenwriter. And I have a couple other textbooks out there. So I still teach and then just write my books, and I'm totally happy.
Well, it sounds like you have the perfect life up there and perfect experience to get to be writing these books now. So we're going to highly recommend that people get this book, and also they can come into the library and check it out. When do you see like the next in the series coming out for this?
Well, I'm pretty close to the end of 9 days. And then I have to polish it and, send it out to beta readers, which are the, people that you trust to give you some feedback and go, this is confusing or whatever. And then it'll go to Panda Moon Publishing, and then they take their time. So I'm hoping this is October. I'm hoping by spring it'll be out.
Oh, well, that's great. That's very exciting. Is there anything else you'd like our viewers to know today about you or your books?
No, but Cindy knows how to get a hold of me, so I'd love to hear from anybody. And again, just this Osterville, first of all, it's an amazing, beautiful town, and that library. Did you get your robot yet?
No, I'm test driving a few of them.
That's so exciting.
Well, it's different. It's hard to find help and things, and just trying to think of different ways of doing things so we can, still have the services that we want to have. We like being cutting edge too, and I love robots. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll have to come back next summer when your next book is out. We have a beautiful tent out on the library lawn, and it's a nice place for an author to speak.
Oh, that'd be great. I'd love to do that.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. And
thank you.
We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.